In terms of Israel's capacity to keep attacking, the ability of its enemies to keep resisting, no one really knows the answer, of course, but where do you see this going?
So it's very clear, and has been for a long time really, that Israel has an enormous ability to continue going. It has clear and unrivaled dominance of Lebanese airspace for its campaign of aerial bombings, and it has also amassed thousands of troops at the Lebanese-Israeli border that are presumably ready to launch an expanded ground invasion of southern Lebanon. But I guess the real unknown for us is exactly how much Hezbollah has been affected by the huge hits that the organization has taken, especially in the past month. Now, obviously, there were fears, especially after the death of the former leader Hassan Nasrallah and the decimation of most of its senior military leadership, that the group might be rudderless and unable to perform militarily. Now, what we've seen in recent weeks, and especially in recent days, is that Hezbollah is putting up a fight on the ground and has killed and wounded Israeli soldiers moving into Lebanese territory, but has also maintained every day its rocket and missile attacks on northern Israel, the most prominent of which, of course, was Sunday's drone attack on a military base in central Israel, which killed at least 4 Israeli soldiers. So while Israel obviously has the upper hand, Hezbollah is clearly not defeated, and indeed an expanded ground invasion might suit Hezbollah, which at best would want to continue up this missile fire into northern Israel, but at the very least would just want to survive. It has much more modest aims than Israel with that campaign.
And regarding what may be upcoming in terms of Israel's retaliation against Israel, its continuing attacks on those Iranian-aligned groups across the Middle East, the Houthis, those in Iraq and in Syria as well, do you believe Benjamin Netanyahu is intent on actually reshaping the Middle East? Is he taking this opportunity to look in that direction?
Well, I can't necessarily speak for the whole region, but I do think that from the perspective of Lebanon, look no further than Benjamin Netanyahu's video directed to the Lebanese people last week, in which he called on Lebanese who don't support Hezbollah to stand up and take back their country. Now, people here in Lebanon understandably interpreted this as a cause for a choice between civil war in Lebanon and confronting Hezbollah violently, or accepting the continuation of Israeli bombardment in a similar style to what has happened in Gaza. And this has been the sort of rhetoric that's been coming out of Israel, is that unless Hezbollah is forced to stand down soon, that Lebanon can become the new Gaza. But what is very clear is that not just in Israel, but also perhaps with certain officials in the United States, Israel's main ally and patron, is that it's perceived that in Lebanon there's a unique opportunity, with Hezbollah having suffered this surprising level of degradation in such a short period of time, to potentially not just force Hezbollah to stand down in this conflict, but also to effectively rewire Lebanese politics to reduce Hezbollah's political power now and into the future, which has very concerning consequences for Lebanon and would be just as likely, in fact, probably more likely, to lead to widespread violence and the total failure of the Lebanese state than it would be to lead to some kind of stable Hezbollah-free political future for Lebanon.
The whole world is looking to the United Nations, the foremost peacekeeping institution in the world. Where do you see the resolution coming? Will it have to come from the UN or somewhere else?
So I think that the UN will definitely need to play a role in a negotiated settlement to the situation in Lebanon, and that will obviously be done mainly through UNIFIL, which is the UN peacekeeping force that's been present in Lebanon since 1978. But there will also be a role for domestic Lebanese institutions to play. Now, the Lebanese army is by far the most respected public institution in Lebanon, and indeed can play a really valuable role in the security arrangement that's found to ensure that Resolution 1701, which is now supported by all Lebanese political parties, really, the full implementation of that, which would keep armed non-state actors away from the Israeli-Lebanese border, that will be something that will need to be continued to be done, perhaps in an expanded capacity by both UNIFIL's troops, but also working alongside troops from the Lebanese army. Obviously, what would be not an ideal scenario is for Israel to conclude that it needs to do this itself and enforce security unilaterally, which I believe would lead to an expanded ground invasion, could keep Israeli troops bogged down in Lebanon for weeks, if not months, if not years, could come at huge cost for Israel, and also would just worsen an already dire humanitarian situation in Lebanon.
David, thank you so much for your patience. It was really, really worth it. So interesting to hear your analysis. Take care.